And here we are. We are live with Ali Salama, Ellie Cooper, and Hala Haitham. I want to give you guys, I want to do justice for all of you. So I'm going to start with Ellie Cooper, who is zooming in from the UK. She says that you are 21 years old and you did graduate from Dubai English Speaking College back in 2018. You're now currently, I can't believe, Ellie, you're in your third year at Northumbria University. You're studying psychology. You spent your time in Newcastle studying and seeing friends. And then during the holidays, you like to travel back to be with your family who are currently here in Dubai. Welcome, Ellie. Welcome to our career fair. It's so great to have you. Over to Hala Haitham. Hala is currently in the UAE, where she had her university destination to stay in the UAE. She's been here for the last 15 years and representing the UAE student perspective at this panel. She's in her final year at Curtin University, Dubai, majoring in mass communication, web media, and marketing. Hala has also taken on 3 internships that are supporting her future career and long-term goals. When she's not balancing her work and her academics, Hala likes to spend her time on her hobbies, which include digital design, photography, videography, web design, and I love this one, poetry writing. And then we go over to Mr. Ali Salama, who is also a desk alumni. I'm so excited to see our desk alumni. You know, desk is not something you do and then forget. Desk is with you for life. We're lifelong desk community members. It's so great to have you. Ali Salama went over to Canada, where he was studying in Toronto. He's a social entrepreneur, a speaker, a podcaster, an ex-pro athlete, and the Middle East mental health ambassador. He is also the founder of empowermag.com, the first mental health magazine in the Middle East. He won Harvard's top 7 most impactful social initiatives in 2019 and earning recognition from the World Health Organization. I'm going to take a breath here, Ali. He hosts Apple's #1 charting youth leadership podcast, Empathy Always Wins, the world's exclusive leadership and mental health podcast focusing on empathy. Definitely something we need to see more of, especially right now. Currently living, between Dubai and my favorite place, Toronto, Canada. Ali is building his mental health startup, Empower. We can see his t-shirt, lots of branding, and consultants institutions on improving their community engagement and on providing leadership and mental health workshops. Ali is always ready to support the community, and he does lots of talks around the community, both here in the UAE and across the globe. Welcome, Ali, welcome, Ellie, and welcome, Hala, to our platform.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
It is so exciting to be here. I'm flying high. I have to give a shout out to Harness Foods. Harness is our desk food providers, and they have been giving me lots of coffee to keep me going. So that's why the energy is pumping here. And I do want to give a big shout out to our collaborating schools. Dubai English Speaking College is collaborating with schools across the UAE, including Curtin University, Dubai, who are our main collaborators, Heartland International School, and Al Diyar over in Fujairah. We have schools zooming in from all over the country, and we have some participants zooming in from India, Ghana, and some interesting places in the UK as well. I want to begin because I know that everybody's come here because they're really, really curious about what it's really like to leave secondary education. Now, I know that I'm full of energy, and that's thanks to Harness Foods. I'm going to plug them again because I'm loving their coffee. But what we're talking about right now is actually a really serious conversation. And I want to do it justice, but there's a lot of fun that we want to be bringing to this conversation as well. So listening into us right now, Ali, Ellie, and Hala, are students across the college, both in their 6th form, in their graduating secondary years, and then lower down the school. And I think this conversation not only is important to have before they leave the college, but also right as they're starting that journey. Because I know, Ali, in the work that you do with mental health and empathy, it's really about educating people. So I'm going to start by asking my first question, and I'm going to start with Hala. Hala, what were your hopes when you were planning your final secondary year in secondary school and you were planning for that next step? Can you remember being that graduating senior student? What were you planning to do when you were thinking about the future?
Wow, thank you so much for your question, Maria. Well, actually, to be honest, back in my last year at high school, I was not really like an optimist and an opportunity catcher like I am now. I was the kind of person who would plan her next, like who would not really plan her next step or look ahead to the future. I would just let life throw me. Do you know what I mean? Like at the age of 17, all I really hoped for was to get accepted in a good university and like just pass through my life. But like as I started my first couple of years in university, my perspectives and my ambitions and my decisions changed and took a 180-degree turn. So I wasn't really the kind of hopeful optimist and all that back at the age of 17.
And I love that you say that, Hella, because I think that we do have students that are very optimistic, and then we have those students that are feeling overwhelmed. And that word optimism, I mean, when you talk about optimism right now, you're talking about it as a university student looking back at that experience. What does optimism look like for anybody in secondary school right now listening in on this conversation?
Um, I think optimism in general, the word is just like to look up to something, to have a plan ahead for your future, to be like hopeful and optimistic to achieve something in your future. But I don't think like I mean, I don't know about others, but in general, I believe that high school students or generally secondary school students are not always expected to be as optimistic as you are when you enter university. It's that very big phase of from transitioning from childhood to adulthood, and I think that's a massive phase. And to me it took a lot of time to transition from this to that. So I think being an optimistic is a great thing, but it really takes time, especially when you're the kind of person who is transforming from a pessimistic to an optimistic, which was me back at the time.
Incredible. Thank you so much. Ali, I know the work that you do right now. You talk to young people, you are helping them to really understand their experience. And I know that when you visited Dubai and was speaking college not too long ago, just you were talking to us about the importance of having these conversations. Can you remember being a year 13 student here at desk or a year 12 student here at desk? And do you remember what those hopes were that you had way back when? I know that you were an athlete, you were really into sports here at the college, and a swimmer, I believe. And those are some of your fondest memories. But when you think back to those hopes, can you remember what they were and how did you plan for your next step?
Yeah, I think that's a very deep question, and I think that this happened 2014. So just for everybody's context, this was when that phase happened. I think that uh, what I was really focused on at the time was what I loved, because I could see a lot of people going into university
Ouais, en
and
pleine.
actually like not following through with what they love to do. So I think that what was so important for me was doing something that I really, really, really felt deeply about, because at the end of the day, I knew for the first time ever when we were put in the computers labs and a desk, looking at the job, seeing what the pay was, and all these things. That was like getting us excited. Me and my friend Daniel Perry, we were doing this. He was a doctor. I wanted to see like what we could do, but at the end of the day, when we look back and think, wow, you can make something great out of anything that isn't numerical, but that you really love. Because when you love something you do, when you go to university and you do it, you don't just do it for a grade, you stand out. And like today, I can say this out of experience.
So incredible. I'm going to touch on something that you said, Ali. You talked about you feeling deeply about something. Again, I have to keep reminding young people listening to this across the college and across the schools zooming in here in the UAE. It's really important to understand in context what something means. So, can you describe to us what feeling deeply really entails?
Yeah, I mean, I always loved, entrepreneurship. Now today I do mental health, but this is, or like I am in the mental health space. Now, before I enter that space, what did I what did I feel towards that, or why did I feel towards why do I feel the way I feel? I took business class. I remember Miss Rachel McCauley very well. The classes, I can still remember the classes because that's how much fun I had in those classes. And today I tie those links together by making sense. Wow, that actually makes sense why I entered this, because I always get asked, are you born an entrepreneur? Are you, at the end of the day, the answer doesn't really matter. Do you love what you do? And because if you do that, I think that you will find ways to make it work for you, because at the end of the day, our stories are all different, but what ties every story together is the decisions we make. And when you love something, you'll find yourself making the best decision, because you will be in the best position to see how that goes. But of course, those stories and these panels that we are on today will give a lot of context, because we can learn from each other.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Ellie. I know you've been listening in to what Ali and Hala were saying. Can you resonate with some of the things that they've mentioned? Hala talked about not being really optimistic when she was in secondary school, not really thinking or knowing exactly. Ali talked about feeling deeply about what you want to be doing. You are currently studying psychology. Was that always what you wanted to do, or how did you plan forward when you were in sixth form?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what they were saying. Totally the same situation for me. I remember when I was back in DES, they didn't have psychology as a GCSE option. So when I went into A levels, I decided, oh, I don't have another option to take. I'll just take psychology. Didn't really think about it. And it was probably the best decision I ever made, because I remember my teacher at the time, she was great, Miss O'Neill, she's left now. And really bonded with her, loved the subject. And I just remember keeping like an open mind about it. All I knew was that I really enjoyed it. It made me really happy. I never dreaded like any piece of work I'd had to do for it. Obviously it was stressful at times, but yeah, definitely enjoyed it. And the process just felt right for me, like doing psychology at uni. I didn't really have any other option because I didn't enjoy anything else. So I was dreading the whole uni application, being like, gosh, like if I don't enjoy psychology, what am I going to do? I don't like anything else. And yeah, it worked out great. And I think a big thing for me, not so much the optimism side of it, but remembering like not to overthink everything I did, because I was so young, and not to get wrapped up in my head about, is this the right decision? Oh my gosh, like what happens if this, what happens if that? And just to really just do what feels right, like what Ali was saying, like if it makes you feel happy and you're enjoying it, then just do it, because at the end of the day, like you've got to like go through the whole, it's 3 years of your life, like you don't want to have any regrets about it and potentially think, oh, I don't enjoy it anymore. I think for me that was the main thing.
Some great points that you made there, Ellie, just touching in on what you were saying about not really knowing what you wanted to do and taking on psychology because maybe there weren't other options. But look, it was definitely the door that you needed to be opening, because you're enjoying that right now. And one of the things that you said is not to overthink it. And I know sometimes young people, depending on the perspective they're coming from, they'll either overthink a situation and worry about making the wrong choice rather than really diving in, like you were saying, and doing something that feels right but doesn't always have to make the right sense at the moment. So I think in what you're capturing for us is for students to really stay open to those opportunities, and sometimes mentioning the teachers that you've had, they're really the inspiring people behind some of these career options that you would make. So I want to kind of zoom around the world now and think about that student that might be listening who is not quite sure where they want to study. Very often students go into that university pathway. It's almost like they're an autopilot. I go to secondary school and then I'm just naturally going to go to university because isn't that what everybody does? But there's the second decision that's really not an individual decision. I think it's sometimes a family decision, is where in the world are you going to study? Ellie, what made you decide to study in the UK?
Well, it's funny actually, because originally I didn't decide to study in the UK. I chose to study in the Netherlands. And my reason for that was that I'm already abroad and I want to continue studying abroad. But I didn't factor in the sense that it was a country I've only been to once. I didn't know anybody there. I remember flying over for the first time like by myself and moving in, and obviously it was great and I met people that I'm still friends with now. But I think the main reason, because I did my first year of uni there and then I decided to transition and go back to the UK and transfer there. And my reason for going to the UK was I needed that support network. I think it was really important for me. Like I'm quite a family orientated person and I loved my friends, obviously, like most people. And I think just being around, like surrounded by people that really could support me was really important for me. So yeah, I decided to go to the UK mainly for those reasons.
Ellie, that's so important. Thank you for bringing that up and mentioning that. That is a real topic of vulnerability. Something that students aren't always thinking about is the mental health factor behind making those choices. And sometimes we need that support. I see Ali nodding as well. Ali, are you resonating with what Ellie is saying right now?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I had this, I thought I had it together. I thought, I could be the swimmer of the year in year 12, win, desk factor and do all this stuff, and had an ego. And I thought like I could go anywhere. And I actually didn't have a choice. I went to Canada because I had to do my citizenship years there because, my father has a Canadian citizenship, and just for legal issues, like he wasn't born there. And if I wanted to hold the same nationality as my father, he was like, well, go study there. That's just 4 years there. And to me, I was like, oh, I can do it. Like, what is Canada? Like, it's just a flight away. And when you're young, you kind of like have that confidence in yourself sometimes if you're an athlete, or if kind of like if you were in the sort of specific, yeah, it's alpha male, it wasn't healthy. I'll put it that way, and I do admit that. And boom, 16 months in, I got clinically diagnosed with depression, and I couldn't take it. Like as Ellie was saying, you feel strong because you're in the safe place, you have your family next to you, you feel like you can conquer the world. But when you land on, Wall Street, which was like Bay Street, which was like Wall Street in Canada, and university is like right across the road, and you have to kind of navigate school, and there's no campus life because you chose to live in the city because you thought the city life was the Tumblr life that you wanted. You chose it, right? You chose it and you wanted it, but you got it, Ali. And it was just very hard. It was very hard. So the thing is with Ellie's, and I mean, for me, it was, I couldn't switch because I wasn't in a position to switch back to Dubai, or I tried to fight as much as I can. And my mom was a very big support. She came to spend as much time as she could with me, but I totally relate to what Ellie was saying with regards to this the support system, because I don't think schools emphasize that transition strong enough. And frankly, it's the most difficult transition I think human beings go through in their entire lives. The transition from high school, from secondary school to university, there's no bigger transition. And if you make it through, and if you understand how challenging it is, you're not by yourself. That's why we have those discussions, and that's why we're all here. But you make it through that, everything else is pretty much a go.
No, Ellie, and I appreciate you saying that as well, and Ellie, you sharing these stories from your experiences, because I agree. The vulnerability that young people face in that transition year is not something that we really spend time preparing. I mean, we're really blessed at DEF with the GROW program and helping students through getting ready for the outside world and helping them think about those things. I know our year 13s also have that kind of support in their 13.5 program. But what you're talking about is not something we can really teach. It's something that you have to live. And we hope as parents and educators that we've taught the skills of resilience. Hala, I'd like to kind of, let's zoom over to your end of things. You're studying in the UAE, and I see that you gave us a big clap for what we were just talking about. I do want to plug this idea of staying in the UAE and studying. So I think it's kind of the trend. and I see it as a trend, and I can totally appreciate why this is the way it is. The UAE is an ever booming, dynamic country with so much potential and so much growth. And we're seeing that in the tertiary educational field in looking at how universities are thriving. We've seen with the pandemic, students staying in the UAE to study because of airports shutting down and students not able to fly out to the countries they want to. But we have to say what it is. We have to call it as it is. The idea of staying in the UAE for expatriate students or even national students isn't always the option that they want to be taking, because it kind of feels like it's going against the thread of what most young people do. You stayed in the UAE. What were those reasons, Hala? And listening to Ellie and Ali, would you say that you were able, because you were close to family, to kind of get through that first year with feeling the connection that they're talking about, or did it not make a difference, and just that transition into university still being overwhelming?
Thank you so much, Maria. Actually, I would just like to highlight on what Ali and Ellie said, transitioning from, secondary school to adultry and all that. It all like also, Ellie mentioned that she's pursuing psychology. Actually, fun fact, I'm also taking psychology at the moment, but not as bachelor's. It's just like a side course because I'm highly interested in psychology. And I think like the main aspect why it's very, very difficult to transition from childhood to adultery and teenage life to adultery in general is basically psychological reasons. You feel like you're not prepared. The society doesn't really prepare you as much. If you don't have a good supportive environment, then it's gonna get harder and harder. So, well, to me, why did I decide to stay in the UAE? It's not that I decided or did not decide. The thing is, like you have mentioned in the beginning, I have been in the UAE for 15 years, ever since I was 6 or 7 years old. By the time I graduated school, I didn't really have a whole future planned, like I mentioned, but I at least wished I'd go overseas, abroad to pursue my studies. Like I told you, I didn't really know what major I wanted first, how I wanted my life to go ahead. As I was going through and applying for universities, by the time I graduated high school, and when I saw that what like Curtin University was willing to offer me, I absolutely knew that this was the right university for me. Now, Curtin University's main campus is in Australia, but as soon as I graduated high school, they have just at the same time launched their new campus in Dubai, which is 1 hour away from where I stay in the UAE and Abu Dhabi. So the great thing is, like I told you, it's because they already launched a new like campus in Dubai. I went up to my dad and I was like, now you don't have any excuses, because the thing is, my dad wasn't really feeling comfortable enough to allow me to let me study abroad. Not because of anything, he was the most supportive person in my life, but the actual reason was because I mentioned how reckless I was, and also I know no one there. I'm like I told you, I was pessimistic, and also he was afraid of how I would interact, how it would affect me, my studies, and all that. Like I told you, he wasn't really sure he would be comfortable letting me stay there all by myself. But eventually, now that I'm about to graduate university, I'm really, really thankful and like very satisfied that I stayed in Dubai to pursue my studies. Besides the amazing environment and the diverse cultures that are all over the country, especially in Dubai and all that, the faculty at Curtin in general and the people around me and my family, they made me feel themselves like I was around a second family, and not just like a bunch of like people and lecturers in a university. I felt like every time I'd wake up and go there, like the faculty just made me feel like it's a fun place to go to do something for my own future, for my own sake, rather than just going to just study. And you know how in school it just gets a little bit boring, you don't want to go and all that. But that's how I felt there in the environment, like it's part of a family to me. So yeah.
I love that you're mentioning this, because when I work with students and they come through the Careers Hub, what we do talk about is the personality of a university, and it's so important to resonate with that personality. Ellie, would you say that now in your current journey that you are feeling more connected to the university body or the university culture, and you're feeling more settled in this experience?
Yeah, 100%. I remember because the thing for me is when I was moving to the UK, I had the option of the whole of the UK. I was like, oh, where do I go? And I remember just researching each university a bit more and just seeing what their like values were and what they wanted as a university. And the uni I'm at now, Northumbria, they were big on mental health. I think at the time they were like #1 for mental health in the UK. And I just thought, yeah, I'm going to go for it. And honestly, it really, really shows as well, like through the constant emails I've had from everyone, like at the uni during COVID, like they were always checking in on me. If I need any kind of help, I have like at least 3 people that I can go to, and the counseling, if you need any at the uni, it's really good, or just any kind of support. And whereas compared to Holland, it was a bit more of an independent approach. So it was a bit more like if you needed help, you really, really had to show it. It wasn't like they would just offer it to you anyway, or that they never even advocated it, to be honest. I don't know, maybe that's more of a cultural thing, but definitely I'm finding it a lot easier and I'm more connected at Northumbria.
It's so important. So if you are a student watching this right now, this is not a conversation that you're normally going to be having. It's a conversation that you want to start asking more of and be part of. I think when we are encouraging students, and Ali, I can see you nodding, when we're encouraging students to start thinking about that university journey, part of that discovery really should be the culture of the university. It should not just be what do I want to study. It should also include how do I want to feel on that journey? What kind of connection do I want to be having with the student body? Ali, I know that you were in Toronto. University of Toronto is a large university. It's a high-ranking university, but very, very large. And we do want to give them a shout out. But what was that experience for you? Ellie said that she now feels really, really connected and really supported. Hala said Curtin University Dubai is very supportive of her. What was it like for you at the university? And now looking back at that journey, what would you have done different to reach out to the support system that you could have had at the university?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I'll just make a very quick distinction. I attended Ryerson's entrepreneurship program. University of Toronto is a great university. They have a Rotman Business School, which I'm actually like reading the book by Rotman right now. I can photograph. It's one of the best strategy books for those into business. Anyways, but going back to the question, what would I do differently? I have a very like firm belief, especially when seeing the way the world has become, with regards to choosing universities and studies and selecting career paths. I think what we don't really consider is, regardless of which path you take, you kind of, so for example, for me, it was entrepreneurship and I definitely wanted to study business. But did it matter where I studied? Honestly, in my opinion, as long as it was a certain tier university, no. What mattered was how I felt. Because of how I feel now, I can do anything I want. I can achieve, I can go, I can message, I can think outside the box. I can have the profile I have on LinkedIn. The world is so connected. Back in the day, like I am so happy that I'm hearing, Ellie and Hala talk about belonging, feeling home, feeling family. Now, back in the day when I was at school, we never spoke about this. We only spoke about, Oxbridge students and we highlighted the academics like 1001. Now the conversation has changed. So in my point of view, I mean, seeing where I am right now, if I went to University of Toronto, if I went to Queen's University, if I went to any universities that were my options, I don't think it would have impacted where I am right now. Just because I do believe that even though I don't have that close tie to my university, what I was able to benefit out of it in that specific program, which was very tailor niche to what I wanted, gave me the capacity to sort of connect in that minor scope. But did I have a university life? I have to be honest, no, I didn't. Did I enjoy my time in Canada? No, I didn't. But did I learn and grow and become the person that I am today? Yes. Would I do it differently? Of course I would do it differently. What would I think doing it differently? I think about how I want to feel, because I didn't think about that. I thought about things that really and I had no guidance. My brother went to university in Dubai, so I couldn't look up to my older brother and ask him. I had to do it the way that I think that was best. And as my mom says, you learn through experience. And I don't think anyone should learn through experience if they have that guidance that we are creating as a safe space together with Maria, Ellie, and Hala today.
Incredible. Thank you, Ali. And I agree with you. You know, life is about the journey. And I know this is a cliche. We say it a lot. We hear it a lot. But it really is. It's the journey. We never know whether it's going to go up, it's going to go down. Patrick Antaki spoke to us earlier today about, you know, if plan A doesn't work out, you know, what is plan B, C, D, all the way to Z? And he talked about resilience through chaos. So I know, Ellie, what you experienced in that first year of university was really about gaining that resilience and being confident to make that choice. If I can zoom back in, Ellie, to that time for you, because I think it's so important. There are too many young people not really thinking about the impact of how it's going to feel when they go abroad, because they're so driven on that academic journey. So Ellie, if we can go back to that year that you were in Netherlands and thinking about what it felt like to be in your dorm room, being far away from home, especially coming from Dubai English Speaking College, where we do protect our students. We do protect. You're really taken care of. And I know, Ali, you know, in your experience as well, every time you talk about your time here, you're always mentioning the support that you had, whether it be in sport or academics. But Ellie, going back to that time, can you remember having the conversation with yourself, and how did you say to yourself, right, this is not working? Because I know sometimes students won't make that decision. They'll kind of write it out because they're afraid of telling their parents that, I think I made a mistake. How did you find the strength to kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, this is not how I want to be feeling?
Yeah, definitely. I remember when I looked back at that time, or when I reflect back now, it was definitely a conflict of emotions, because on one side it was like the worst period of my life, and then on the other side it was like the best, in terms of like I've definitely learned so much from it, and like you said, it's definitely made me resilient. A big thing for me is I didn't have a choice at the end of first year. I couldn't continue at uni because you needed above 75% to go through to second year. So I knew I had to tell my parents, like, I can't actually continue here. I need to find somewhere else to study. And you're automatically, I think, blocked from applying to any other uni in the Netherlands for 2 years. So I knew that like the end like goal was that I couldn't continue. But luckily, like I was just open and honest with my parents from the start, and I've always been very close to them. So having to tell them that, they were obviously like, you know, your mental health comes first, and they could obviously see I was not enjoying it. And yeah, it was just not very nice to go through, but you do learn so much. And a big thing for me as well is that I was constantly comparing myself to my friends that are in the UK and their uni lives. And I was like, well, their uni life looks amazing because they're going out every night, you know, wow, like I'm not, because I had so much work to do. And I think just really not to get all caught up in what everyone else is doing and how everyone else appears to be at uni, because the reality is not everyone is always happy in their experience. And then after that, I realized that all these friends that I thought were having an amazing time, like they actually either dropped out of uni or changed course or are doing something completely different. So it was quite reassuring to be like, oh, I'm not the only one, and just really focus on yourself and what you want to do, and not let yourself get caught up in other people's you know, lifestyles at uni.
Important. Thank you. You know, talk to your parents, which is what you were saying, Ellie, and being honest and really tap into what you want to be doing. I want to give a big shout out to our students. We have the media students who are thoroughly enjoying this session, and we've got teachers all over the country listening into this conversation. Hala, I want to zoom back into your experience being here in Dubai. Now, you know, if we look from the outside looking in, we think, wow, you were home, you had your parents to cook for you, clean after you, really keep taking care of you, but still you were a university student. So now that you're in your final year and you're looking back, you're about to get into that next transition. What do you feel that you experienced at uni, that even though you were living at home, even though you had the family support, even though your surroundings and your environment were familiar, still, you had to experience something that nobody prepared you for at uni, what would that be?
Um, I feel like answering this question would never end, but let me tell you in short. Okay, so school is very, 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 very emphasis on the very much different from university. Since I told you I was not a hard worker back at school and back when I was younger, I had my teachers back at school basically push me to do the work, basically like spoon feed me with information. They were always in front of me and telling me what to do, how to do it, because of how much I was not putting in the work. I mean, of course, I was not literally, like I mentioned, spoon-fed information like in that way, but I was at least being told how to do that and what to do, why. Basically, I wouldn't like the whole, let's say if I had a task, I wouldn't put in the 100%. I'd probably just do the 50% and the other 50% would be my teacher. But I think that was mostly everyone back in school. But in university, no one is going to run after you. Like of course we all know, no one's really going to run after you and tell you to do the work. No one is going to teach you in details why this is that, or how to do this, or how to achieve that. Because by the time you're in university, it will already be expected that you transitioned from being a child, whether you matured or you did not mature, but it would already be expected that you have transitioned to a responsible adult who knows their duties and responsibilities. It's like a whole new phase, like almost like transitioning, like I told you, from childhood to adulthood. But luckily enough for me, I had to go through a foundation period at university before starting my bachelor's. But then again, foundation year is not the same as how easy peasy school was. But it really did help me a lot in becoming a more independent person who eventually stopped expecting to always have someone tell her what to do and how to do it. I basically learned how to improvise, how to adapt, and how to act more like a professional in order to be treated like one.
I love that. Act like a professional in order to be treated like one. You know, I'm thinking back to a conversation I've had with my own children, and them telling me, treat me like an adult. You know, stop treating me like a child. I'm a young adult. And what you're just saying now is to start acting like the professional that you want them to treat you like. Ali's nodding his head. Ali smiles. You know, what does that look like? Ali, what does that look like, you know, for you when you think, how does a professional act? Because nobody teaches you that, but we kind of expect you to.
Yeah, I'd say LinkedIn. You know, we're living in a digital world. You know, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for LinkedIn. I connect with everybody. I get all my business. I get all my lovely relationships. I even connected with you, Marie, on LinkedIn. You know, it was the way to connect. And I truly believe in the next 5 years, there will be no resumes, there will be no CVs. Everything's going to be on LinkedIn, just like Facebook right now. So I think highly invest on your LinkedIn, because that's your professional tuxedo that you wear. There's recommendations. So whenever you do a project, whenever you work with somebody, ask for them to recommend you, so that you don't walk and talk about yourself. You just share one link, bam, it's done. So invest in your personal brand. That's how you really look professional. And that's what I truly would highlight everyone to do, starting at school and then university. And then keep that, like, get excited about what, and don't just put a certificate that you got because you want. No, I think when you love something, and I think this is kind of how I figured what I figured out in my journey. So that's what I think acting professional looks like. And of course, when you're in a physical setting, dress dress appropriately. Like be very present. Like, I don't want you to dress to impress. Dress in a way that you feel confident and comfortable. Don't affirm or don't conform. If you're in a place that doesn't need you to be over, don't. But wear yourself. And that's something I always want to say. The hardest thing in the world is being yourself. And that's after a lot of conversations with so many youth. When you be yourself, whatever settings, you will not be always accepted, but those that will let you in will only accept you. And there's nothing more beautiful in this world than working or being even accepted in certain like professional areas, being yourself and not having to wear a mask, because that inherently affects your mental health. And I'd love to hear, you know, Hala and Ellie's experience as well, as we're entering that professional setting. I think I'm more into that realm with businesses, but I don't know, because there's the rate of like, I think over the past 3 years, we've especially during Corona, those who are in schools or in universities have experienced some things I have never experienced. So I've been in the in the working life for the past 2 years before Corona, and I think Corona has changed the dynamics of a lot of things. I have never done virtual classes in my life, never. So I'd love to hear how that sort of maybe moving forward, or perhaps how looking professional means for Ellie and Hala as well, to add to the conversation.
That's great. Ellie, talk to us about some of the things that nobody prepared you for. So Hala talked to us about, you know, teachers aren't going to chase after you and help you to get those assignments in. What were some of the experiences that you faced at university that nobody prepared you for here in secondary school?
Yeah, I think I was prepared for all the academic side of it. I always I was told by everyone, you know, you have to do your own work outside of, like, just because I had 6 hours of uni a week doesn't mean I have 6 hours of work. So I was prepared for that. I think it was more the social side of it. Just knowing that it's not, you're not always going to be busy. You're not always going to be, you know, constantly doing all these, you know, fun things with everyone. Sometimes, you know, you do just wake up and you do just think, oh, okay, I'll go to the library today, and then yeah, I'll come back and maybe I'll have beans on toast, and that's it. That is like literally what I'll do. And it, like, because you have to, and it's not like, you know, just don't put pressure. I wish I didn't put as much pressure on myself, like, you know, well, everyone else is doing this, so I need to do this, and, you know, all that. Just, you know, really just take a step back and take a calm, open-minded approach, and not really, yeah, like I said, put too much pressure on yourself about it. That's what I wish that I didn't.
That is so important. Don't put that pressure. Do you think that the academic journey kind of makes us have that pressure, because we're always comparing ourselves, aren't we? I know that as students, there's a comparison to test results, and there's comparison to peers in the classroom. Ali, you were in sport. There was always comparison in sport. There's always somebody who has to be that first prize winner. Hala, would you say that now that you're entering, so Ali's already he's in the world of work already. Ellie, you're finishing up soon. Hala, you're on your way out as well. How are you preparing for that competitive world of work, keeping in mind what Ellie's saying about, you know, taking a breath and not becoming overwhelmed with that next step?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like Ellie mentioned, the amount of expectations people have, or like you expect people to have of you as you're transitioning or entering the professional world, this itself just puts in a lot of pressure on you, and makes you just act in a way where like you're expected to do this. So if you don't do it, you're gonna just come back to yourself like, am I not that good enough? Should I have done this better? Am I just lower? Are they just like better or higher than me? So I completely agree with her on the starting to compare yourself to others and all that, because of the pressure that you have on yourself. For me, I can pretty much say that I already entered the professional world due to the internships I have done, and I'm currently doing one more. It's a digital marketing internship, and the good thing about it is it's both virtual and physical. So it's a mix of both. I can go to the office once or twice a week, but like for me, the kind of person, for me, relating back to Ali, I'm not into virtual communication and virtual meetings and virtual classes. I'm more of a face-to-face, social, interactive person. So virtual, like transitioning to virtual classes and everything turning virtual, not just classes in university, but also with regards to professional meetings like the one we're doing right now, it kind of like, it's not really what I was willing and achieve, like hoping to achieve, maybe let's say a year or 2 years back, because I really wanted to you know, how do I say this? I want to show off my skills and all that, but like in front of people like who are actually face to face. You know what I mean? So professional world to me was like, I think when I first started interacting with professional individuals around me and all that, it definitely wasn't as great as you would expect, but I managed to cope. I managed to tackle around some ways to communicate, and I learned a lot of things. Like for example, this is something that I really think is very beneficial to all of us, especially to everyone who's starting to enter the professional world, is to like never be afraid to ask any question. let's say you're an intern, you just started, you're a recent graduate, you just started your professional life. Like people wouldn't expect you, or professional individuals around you wouldn't expect you to know everything. So if they ask you to go and complete this task or do this thing, or do like something, they're asking you to do, and you just don't know how to do it, but you're too afraid to not to say that you don't know how to do it because you're afraid how they would think of you. But you're a recent graduate, they don't expect you to have much experience. So I didn't do that in the beginning, and it was really like I lost a lot. It really made me feel like I'm still lower than them. But that is the thing, I am, because I don't have much experience, and that's okay. That is the point, this is the phase where you learn and you take experience. So over like the time, and as time passed by, I just started to learn in general. If I don't know something, just ask. This is the point. And actually, I also started to learn. I started to notice that when you ask questions that you're not sure of, or when you ask how do you do that or how do you not do that, it doesn't make you look like a weak individual or someone. In fact, it makes you look stronger, because you just want to learn more, you want to get more knowledge, you want to be sure that you're achieving that task or that duty in the most right way. So this is something that I could really advise for. Never be afraid to ask anything, no matter how silly you think it might be.
So much, Hala. That's such a great insight into those experiences. And I think you're right. I think most often we're always afraid to ask questions. And I can tell you that even as adults working in our professions, it's almost like we're afraid to ask questions because we're afraid of how this is going to make us look and come across. But remembering what Ellie was saying about not to compare ourselves, I know, Hala, you said that as well. Ali had a question to the panel. I want to go back to his question. One of the biggest concerns that parents are having, educators are having, and students are worrying about is, are we at a disadvantage right now because we are virtual learning? Even though here at Desk, we're very, very lucky to be able to come to the college. I know there are schools all over the country where students are remote learning, and teachers are either doing remote and in person, and they're kind of blending it all together. Ali mentioned that he was never a student through this experience. Hala and Ellie, I know that you currently are. What kind of an insight can you offer secondary students right now listening to this? Do you feel that this experience of the pandemic, this chaos, as Patrick Antaki this morning described it as in our talk about Plan A and Plan B, do you feel that this experience, as difficult and as challenging as it is actually preparing young people for the future world of work, as Ali was mentioning before?
To be honest, I've thought of that myself. I haven't really, to be honest, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's an experience that will we ever get again? I don't know. At least we're prepared for it now. And it gives you a different style of learning. Like, it does add a bit of pressure on you, and it does, you're kind of forced, or I was forced to think about things differently. And I think I was more motivated to know that I had to get up and I had to log on and I had to find the resources online myself. Like, I wasn't just going to walk into a lecture or a workshop and it just be given there. Like, I had to be more switched on and engaged in the materials I was working with. So I really try, because there's times where it's like you do just think like, oh, I can't do this anymore, I'm so fed up. So I really try and look for the positives in it, and everyone's going through the same thing. And if you are at a disadvantage, to be honest, everyone else will be. Like, I don't think you're the only one that would have had those experiences. So I guess it's just turning those negatives, or potential negatives, into positives. As easy as that sounds.
That's such a great insight. Thank you, Ellie. It is really important that we understand, even though as teenagers, sometimes we feel, and I'm going to call myself a teen right now because, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, but teenagers sometimes feel like the world is them and their experience is the only experience. I see Ali nodding. Ali was like, this hit a nerve. This is really, we're on target here. Hala, I'm going to give a shout out to Team Curtin University Dubai. I've been watching the kinds of experiences they're offering their students. It's an absolutely incredible experience. Hala, do you feel that they're preparing you for your future career, both virtually and in person?
Absolutely. This is something I can't even begin to be thankful for my university. the amount of virtual career sessions and sessions in general on how to prepare yourself for the professional world and life after university in general, not professional world only, is just amazing. Like I would just wake up and I'd see an email from my university saying there's a session, there's a virtual webinar going on next week, sign up, and it's just always there. Every week there has to be a session, and this is just the kind of example I would say of a supportive environment and a supportive university that someone would look up to. And like I told you, mainly the reason why I fell in love with my university wasn't just because of the major that I'm taking, or like the lectures that I'm being taught. It's actually the environment, the way is just so like very very supportive, and very like you fall down, you do like you do something that's less kind of not expected, they would always get you back up. It's not like, even though I told you school teachers would usually like chase you to do the work, but even though in university it's not, they're not chasing you, but they're actually supporting you to do it. You know what I mean? Like they wouldn't go up the same as school, and they would go like, do this work, do this, do that, do that. No, it's actually done in a very supportive way where it makes you feel like you want to do it. Do you get what I mean? And mentioning back
Totally.
on, yeah.
Sorry, just because I'm really conscious of the time, we probably have about 2.5 minutes before students are going to have to jump off this call. I'm going to go around the I'm going to go around the table and put you all on the spot. If you could think of one word that young people can take away from this conversation that's going to remind them about the amazing opportunities that lay ahead of them, keeping in mind that one word, that one describing word that you think brings your experience all together. I didn't prepare you for this, so this is something that I'm throwing at you. Ali, you're a man of many words. Can you think of just one word that could describe for a young person the experience that awaits them?
I can't think of one word, but I'll say a phrase: invest in friends. Invest in friends. I wish I did.
I love that.
And now
That's
I
a
am.
great one. Invest in your friends. Definitely keep your tribe close, because they're always going to be there for you. Ellie, you're kind of looking at me like, oh no, don't ask me, but I'm going to come around to you. Can you think of one word or
Yeah.
a short phrase?
Well, I can think of two, like just learning curve. Honestly, I just say it's just a big learning curve. Like you're constantly learning. That's it, really.
That's a great one. I love that. Invest in your friends, learning curve. And Hala, over to you.
Actually, one word and one short phrase. So the first word, communication. Communicate, communicate, communicate. And the second one, don't ever be afraid to reach out. Whatever you think it is, no matter how silly you think it is, don't ever be afraid to reach out to, let's say, a supportive bunch of people, your family, your friends, your lecturers, your mentors, anyone. Just don't be afraid to reach out.
I love it. Thank you so much. That was Ali Salama, Ellie Cooper, and Hala Haitham, who joined us today to talk to young people across the country. We want to give a big shout out to Dubai English Speaking College. It is the home of many of our students. We love it here. We love meeting our alumni students, Ellie and Ali. It's so great to see you in great shape. Stay safe over in the UK. Ellie, I know, Ali, you're going to be heading back to Canada soon, but we love having you here in Dubai. Hala, it is so great to have you and Team Curtin joining us. And we also want to give a big shout out to our collaborating schools, Al Diyar International School in Fujairah and Heartland International School here in Dubai. That brings us to the end of this incredible talk. We spoke with our alumni graduates about their experiences and some of their tips for the future. Our next talk is going to bring an incredible speaker, Dr. Bogdan, all the way from, he's going to be zooming in. Oh, here he is right now. Dr. Bogdan is zooming in from the UK. He is a very busy doctor working in the hospital system right now, but he is also very, very passionate about helping young people. So we're just going to say goodbye to Ali, Ellie, and Hala. Please stay online if you want to, but we're going to ask that Dr. Bogdan and I are on video right now. We're going to give the students a couple of minutes to be joining Dr. Bogdan, and then we'll get started.